Revenge with Karen.
Rebecca knew something was off the moment the quarterly safety budget came back slashed by 42%, not in a redlined PDF or spreadsheet, but as a post-it stuck to the bottom of a craft services invoice. In a company where warehouse staff worked 12-hour shifts beside autonomous forklifts that couldn't tell a shin from a shelf bracket, budget cuts weren't numbers. They were broken legs waiting to happen. And yet, first aid kits vanished, and hazard signage was replaced with laminated "Stay Positive" posters. The CEO's new wife, Madison, was busy announcing the installation of emotional wellness corners, featuring essential oils, beanbags, and bowls of dried chickpeas, labeled Mindful Munch. Rebecca wasn't new. She'd been here before 3 rebrands, 2 lawsuits, and 1 unfortunate VR headset recall. Her job, director of ops, to keep the moving parts of the supply chain from flying off and decapitating someone. She didn't do fluff. She didn't do politics. And she sure as hell didn't do chickpea therapy. But when she flagged the safety downgrades in a formal report, her inbox remained as empty as the Band-Aid shelf in the warehouse med kit. No response from legal. No acknowledgement from HR. No Slack ping from Madison. That came later, in public. A week after filing her report, Becca was tagged, twice, in a Slack thread titled Team Culture Issues. Madison, typing like she'd swallowed a podcast on emotional intelligence and coughed up the transcript, wrote, "Some individuals are actively resisting the positivity pivot. This kind of toxicity undermines our community values. Just because you're good at spreadsheets doesn't mean you understand people." Someone reacted to the post with a unicorn emoji. Madison loved that. Rebecca didn't engage. Never did. There was a dignity in silence, especially when everyone else was busy turning workplace gaslighting into performance art. Madison, now head of culture, whatever that meant, had never worked in logistics. Her background included 2 Instagram lifestyle accounts, a short-lived subscription box for genderless bath products, and this one still made Rebecca snort, 3 months co-hosting a relationship advice podcast called We Don't Fight, We Process. Still, Rebecca tried. She sat through the mandatory gratitude circle, where grown adults were forced to compliment each other like it was corporate summer camp. She submitted a revised budget to protect the night shift's hazard pay. She even explained, twice, to Madison why replacing safety cones with lavender-potted plants in a live forklift zone might not encourage trust-based movement. Nothing helped. The more Rebecca spoke up, more Madison smiled that tight little PR smile, the one that said, "You're the problem, and I'm about to fix you in Canva." And sure enough, within a month, her calendar invites started disappearing. Her budget approval access glitched. Her weekly sync with the CFO got lost 3 times in a row. And when she asked IT why her login kept auto-forwarding her emails to someone named Culture Ops Madison Review, she got a shrug and a ticket number. Now, if you're listening and thinking, "God, I've been Rebecca," well, consider subscribing. Most of you don't, but it genuinely helps our team keep sharing these stories. And if you've ever had to smile through a PowerPoint while someone dismantled your job with pastel fonts, give it a like too. Anyway, Rebecca wasn't naive. She knew what was coming. She'd seen the warning signs before: the slow administrative erasure, the gaslight by 1,000 cuts routine, grinning HR toad who started showing up at meetings she wasn't invited to. But what they didn't know, what Madison didn't understand in her glitter-filled little head, was that Rebecca had one rule: she didn't raise her voice. She raised records, and she'd been keeping plenty. It happened during the Q4 sync, a 10 o'clock a.m. all-hands Zoom where people usually muted themselves, fake smiled in gallery view, and prayed their toddlers or cats wouldn't wander on. For once, Rebecca wasn't multitasking. She had her notes ready, her numbers solid. Fulfillment times were down. Cost per unit was stable despite the budget slashes. She was prepared to walk them through how they'd managed to avoid catastrophe in 3 major facilities using duct tape, negotiation, and sheer will. But then Madison unmuted. Before we dive into Rebecca's segment, she began, teeth bared in what could only legally be called a smile. "I think it's important to address a team culture concern." Rebecca's cursor froze. Madison continued, her voice syrupy and weaponized. "When leadership pushes back on efforts to build emotional cohesion, it tells staff that performance matters more than people. That's a form of psychological harm." The phrase hung in the Zoom silence like a slow-motion car crash. On screen, some faces blinked in confusion. A few turned off their cameras. I've received multiple DMs. Madison went on, expressing hurt, confusion, even fear. She didn't name Rebecca, but she didn't have to. They were looking at her face. The screen had her name in bold white text under the little video box, Rebecca L., Director of Operations. That's when the CEO joined in, camera on, sleeves rolled, red-faced like he'd just lost a bet. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't vague. Apologize to my wife in front of the entire company or you're done. He said it like he was ordering lunch. Like this was just another item on the agenda. Quarterlies, morale, public humiliation. No one spoke, not one click, not even the guy from BizDev who always forgot to mute and breathed like Darth Vader through a vape pen. Rebecca blinked, tilted her head like she was trying to make sense of a bad audio connection. She felt heat creep up her neck, not from shame, but from the sheer, absurd gall of it. Of being told, in front of 200 people, that her decades of service were secondary to some PR Barbie's bruised ego. So she smiled, softly, calmly. She unmuted. Madison, she said, her voice even, her eyes dead still on the webcam, I'm sorry that you felt threatened by someone doing their job. A few mouths twitched. A mic accidentally unmuted and quickly went back off. Madison froze. The CEO blinked, clearly unsure if that counted. Rebecca clicked leave meeting. The silence that followed felt nuclear. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She didn't even call anyone. She walked to the kitchen, poured herself a glass of iced coffee, and sat on her porch like it was just another Tuesday. Because in her world it was. She dealt with bankruptcies. She'd watched entire C-suites get perp-walked. A Zoom tantrum? Please. But here's the thing about Rebecca, she was always listening. Always documenting. Because what the CEO and his culture queen didn't know was that Rebecca had triggered her compliance log recorder the moment Madison said the words psychological harm. She had every second of that call. And she wasn't going to send it to HR. She wasn't even going to send it to the CEO. She was going to send it to someone with actual teeth. Rebecca didn't sleep that night. Not because she was upset, because she was busy. Kitchen table became a war room. Legal pad notes, printed Slack transcripts, and a thumb drive labeled Q4 Zoom unedited. She didn't pace or cry or down whine like a wronged character on cable TV. She simply did what she always did when the machinery jammed. She fixed it. Quietly. Systematically. She pulled up her employment contract, version 6.2, post-acquisition merger. Page 14, Section D. Any public disciplinary action levied against the employee must first be preceded by a formal internal inquiry involving neutral HR representation and legal counsel. Failure to do so activates a mandatory arbitration clause overseen by the board's independent review committee. She took a screenshot, time-stamped it. Then she opened her email to her employment attorney. Subject line, retaliation event documentation, immediate review needed. She attached the Zoom recording, 3 relevant Slack threads, and a PDF she'd been compiling quietly since Madison's first gratitude circle ended with a threat about reshaping roles to match culture. One of the attachments was a screen recording of a Slack conversation between Madison and a junior HR associate. In it, Madison had typed, verbatim, "We can always replace meat with hands. The trick is making them feel like they're lucky to be here." The associate had reacted with a skull emoji. Madison followed up with, "Warehouse staff don't get culture, they get injuries." That thread was time-stamped, saved, and cross-referenced to an injury report from the Akron facility, a report Rebecca had escalated twice without response. She included that too. Then she hit send. 20 minutes later, her lawyer, Janine Coleman, employment bulldog and former state ethics prosecutor, replied, "Got it. Clause clearly violated. Retaliation claim solid. I'll file tonight. Pull your access logs and calendar metadata now before they wipe anything. You'll hear from me in the morning. Do not respond to any further comms from them without me CC'd." Rebecca exhaled. That was the moment it all shifted. She wasn't defending her job anymore. She was activating a clause most execs forgot even existed. By 1:30 a.m., the retaliation claim was filed. By 2:00 a.m., Janine had forwarded it to the board's independent legal counsel, along with the specific clause triggered by the Zoom event. By 2:15 a.m., IT logs confirmed Rebecca's Slack was deactivated. That move, ironically, strengthened her case, proved they had acted punitively before the board could conduct its mandatory review. And by dawn, Rebecca had printed a single page, slid it into a clear sleeve, and laid it gently on her desk next to her company badge. The page contained only this: trigger event documented. Clause D14 activated. Retaliation claim filed. Evidence chain preserved. She made no announcement. She didn't update LinkedIn. She didn't tweet, because this wasn't a cry for help. It was a legal tripwire. And the moment they'd demanded a public apology on a recorded call without cause, they'd stepped on it. Now all she had to do was wait. The HR email landed at 7:42 a.m. Sharp, cold, corporate. Due to recent developments and internal concerns regarding team cohesion, your employment status is currently under review. During this time, access to company systems has been temporarily suspended. No greeting, no signature, just a frozen sentence posing as policy. Rebecca stared at it without blinking, not because she was shocked, but because she was calculating how long it had taken them to pull the trigger after the Zoom incident. Less than 24 hours, sloppy, legally reckless, and exactly what she'd hoped for. Her Slack, dead. Outlook, auto-forwarding to a catch-all leadership culture mailbox. Google Calendar, blank, not even birthdays. They didn't just try to erase her, they tried to vanish her. Meanwhile, Madison, who Rebecca assumed had never read an HR policy deeper than a Canva poster about inclusion, posted a selfie from the executive lounge. She wore oversized sunglasses indoors and held a turmeric latte like it was an Oscar. The caption read, "Hard choices, but culture matters." Nail sparkles the company's core Slack channel, usually used for IT updates and free pizza announcements, erupted in subtle panic. The absence of Rebecca, the silence from her team, the gaping hole where operations used to live, it was all happening in real time. But no one knew where to aim their fear. And Rebecca, she didn't flinch. She opened a clean email draft from her personal account, addressed it to HR, legal, and the CEO. Please note, I will not be submitting any resignation until the independent board-mandated legal review has concluded. Any assumptions otherwise should be documented for legal purposes. All internal documentation and evidence have been preserved. Thank you. Short. Surgical. Then she added one more line. If you require clarification on Clause D14 of my employment contract, please consult your own counsel before proceeding further. She hit send. Across the country, legal would be reading that with a mouthful of burnt office coffee, realizing someone in HR had made a colossal mistake. Back in the building, the whispers started. Rebecca's team lead, Carlos, texted her a screenshot. It was from a company group chat. The newest intern had asked, "Wait, is Rebecca gone? Who's doing fulfillment planning?" The answer came from Madison's assistant. "We're rethinking the need for rigid planning. Culture over control." Carlos just added a single reaction, a clown emoji. Rebecca didn't reply, because the truth was she was gone, physically, virtually, digitally scrubbed from every login and calendar invite. They turned off the wrong switch, thinking it would kill her influence. But what they'd actually done was light a fuse, and the first boom was still on its way. The crisis didn't erupt all at once. It oozed in like a slow, boiling leak behind a corporate drywall smile. First came the legal review. The board's compliance team, 4 overpaid attorneys in stitched suits who normally just rubber-stamped executive vacations, got a file dropped in their laps by Rebecca's lawyer. Not a letter, not a threat, just a link. It opened to a video file titled Q4 All Hands 2025 Final MP4. They watched, they blinked, then they watched again. At 14:36, the CEO's voice came through, clear and unmistakable. "Apologize to my wife in front of the entire company or you're done." On camera, in front of 200 employees. Section 9.3 of their own handbook, Workplace Conduct and Retaliation Prevention, might as well have started flashing red in the room like a fire alarm. Not only had he issued a direct threat, but it was public, tied to his spouse, and done without prior documentation or legal process. It wasn't just bad optics. It was a talking liability with sound and timestamps. Then came the leak. It wasn't from Rebecca. She didn't need to move a muscle. It came from somewhere in HR, a junior staffer who'd had enough of Madison's vision boards and pastel fascism. They uploaded a screenshot to Reddit. The thread title, "CEO's wife calls warehouse crew replaceable meat and gets apologized to on Zoom." The post included a Slack log where Madison, referring to the warehouse staff, had typed, "These people are just meat with hands. We need new blood that actually cares about vision." Someone commented, I'd like to see her try unloading a shipment of lithium batteries in July without passing out. The thread went viral. Warehouse Reddit found it. Then TikTok did. And within 36 hours, #meet with hands was trending. People posted photos of themselves wearing warehouse gloves, holding signs that read replaceable this flexed biceps. A parody account appeared within hours. At Vision, Queen Madison bio. Meat is messy. Culture is clean. Madison's Instagram quietly went private. Her assistant stopped responding to calendar invites. And the CEO, his office, issued a 2-line statement to a business news outlet. We do not comment on internal personnel matters. Our company remains committed to a positive work culture. Translation: panic at the executive level. Internally, systems lagged, deliverables slipped. One director resigned to spend more time with their family. A fulfillment delay at the Nashville warehouse got picked up by a client who asked, in writing, if the rumors about staffing culture were true. Meanwhile, Rebecca said nothing. No tweets, no comments, no quotes. She sat in her house, tending to her garden, sipping her tea and waiting. Because what they didn't realize yet, but were about to learn the hard way, was that her silence wasn't retreat. It was pressure. And pressure, when sustained, always finds the weakest beam. It was the director of risk and compliance, an older man with a limp and a long memory, who finally said it out loud. Has anyone read her contract? The boardroom went still. This was 3 days after the leak, 2 days after Madison's private Instagram story. Just a girl fighting for culture sparkles was screen captured and posted by a former intern. And roughly 8 hours after the company's largest client put a hold on Q1 renewal negotiations, pending internal resolution. The GC, pale and sweating under the collar of his bespoke suit, tapped nervously through the HRIS system, pulling up Rebecca's file. He didn't find what he expected. Instead of a standard issue executive clause, he found version D, Addendum 3, issued post-acquisition. It was buried like a landmine beneath a forest of harmless boilerplate. But there it was. Section 17C, Public Disciplinary Action Protocol, in the event of any public reprimand, censure, or disciplinary action enacted against the employee without prior internal inquiry and legal representation. Matter shall be automatically escalated to the Independent Board Review Committee. Should the employee's reputation, professional standing, or career trajectory be adversely impacted by such actions, indemnification shall be executed in accordance with Clause 22, including but not limited to full severance, legal fees, public retraction, and advisory retainer eligibility. Someone muttered, "You've got to be kidding me." They weren't. It was airtight, ironclad, crafted with surgical precision by someone who'd clearly anticipated exactly this kind of power move years ago, and then had it signed by an overeager COO during merger season when they were too busy padding investor decks to notice. The board chair glanced around the room, eyes narrowing. So, we're liable. The legal team didn't answer. They didn't need to. By that afternoon, Outlook invites hit inboxes across the C-suite. Emergency board session attendance mandatory. Agenda: Zoom incident and retaliation exposure. The company's Slack channels went dead silent. At 5:06 p.m., the CEO was pulled from a culture leadership live stream to attend. When he saw the agenda, he reportedly laughed. That little clause will squash it. He didn't realize it wasn't up to him anymore, because the clause was triggered. It didn't require his approval. The board convened in a private video call. They reviewed the footage, the chat logs, the Reddit thread. They read the clause twice, then 3 times. No wiggle room, no deniability. Rebecca hadn't just documented the abuse, she had contractual teeth, and they'd bitten down. From her quiet home office, Rebecca received a blind copied email from her attorney. One line they're reviewing. Stay silent. You've already won more than that. She closed the email, sipped her tea. Out on the porch, the wind moved her wind chimes, soft, deliberate, metallic. That sound would carry all the way to the boardroom soon enough. It began with a calendar cancellation, then another. Then all of Madison's culture touchpoint sessions vanished from internal invites. No explanation, no substitute, just a widening digital void where her pastel-colored initiatives used to live. By noon, her Slack status flipped to gray. One line appeared in the Daily Digest. Madison Carlisle will be out of office for the foreseeable future. Officially, administrative leave pending review. Unofficially, they were closing the gate after the lion had already wandered into traffic wearing glitter and a Team Vibes lanyard. Her projects were suspended without ceremony. The wellness corners dismantled. The gratitude survey pulled. Even the overpriced kombucha taps in HQ's break room were boxed up and labeled to be reviewed. And then came the screenshots. It started with one brave employee, an ops manager, who'd had enough of Madison referring to hourly staff as low vibration. He forwarded a Slack DM to internal legal with the subject line, "Cultural priorities or hostile bias." Log showed Madison asking if it was even worth investing in morale for the night shift team, because most of them won't be here long anyway. That lit the match. By the next morning, legal had received over 30 screenshots from employees across departments, Slack exchanges, calendar invites, even audio recordings of vision briefings, where Madison instructed managers to stop using safety compliance as an excuse to resist change. And then, one resurrected a private Slack channel from 6 months ago, originally titled Hash Culture Revamped 2025, now repurposed and renamed Hash Meet with Hands It Exploded. Internally, it became a live museum of Madison's greatest hits, quote after quote, all archived, time-stamped, and crowdsourced. Some added captions. Others photoshopped her most callous quotes onto inspirational posters and uploaded them like digital graffiti. One featured a stock photo of a smiling warehouse crew beneath a quote bubble, "Replaceable meat, but make it positive." People laughed, but legal didn't, and neither did the board. The CEO, meanwhile, attempted damage control. He pulled aside a few execs, insisted the whole thing was exaggerated, said Madison was just trying to push culture faster than some people were comfortable with. He scheduled a meeting with the board's PR subcommittee to propose a statement, something about unintended tone and miscommunication. He never got to finish. The board chair cut him off during the call. "You're not the one under review. She is. Flat. Final. No wiggle room." A silence fell on the line that even he couldn't bluster through. Inside legal's war room, whiteboards filled with timelines, evidence chains, damage projections. Intern was assigned to comb through 6 months of Slack messages between Madison and every member of leadership. HR reissued the company's whistleblower policy. IT restored backup logs for calendar deletions. The operations team was interviewed twice. Rebecca's name came up often, but not from her own mouth, because Rebecca still hadn't said a word. No statement, no interview, no leaked text messages or anonymous blog posts. He didn't need to speak. The system was doing it for her now. And the louder it got, the smaller Madison and the CEO began to look inside the machine they thought they ran. The memo dropped at 9:03 a.m. Eastern, an unceremonious PDF emailed to all staff, pasted on the intranet, and posted to the investor relations page like a wet tissue trying to plug a dam. "We take workplace retaliation seriously. Board has initiated an independent third-party audit into recent events. We are committed to transparency, accountability, and the well-being of all employees." No signatures, no mention of names, but everyone knew what it was about. The media did too. By lunchtime, 2 tech blogs and a business ethics watchdog site had published breakdowns of the Zoom recording, complete with leaked quotes, timelines, screenshots from the now infamous Hash Meet with Hands Slack channel. The phrases "CEO's wife," "retaliation," and "recorded Zoom" were now linked in Google search autocomplete like a death knell for investor confidence. By 2 p.m., the company's stock slid 6.8%. Not catastrophic, but the kind of drop that makes shareholders whisper and PR teams sweat through their designer blazers. Then came the Union Post. It wasn't long or dramatic, just a single LinkedIn update from the regional warehouse union rep. Operations runs because of people like Rebecca, not because of corporate mood boards. Beneath it, a photo of Rebecca at a site visit 3 years prior, hard hat, clipboard, surrounded by grinning warehouse staff. She wasn't smiling for the camera. She was mid-sentence, pointing at something off-frame. Solving a problem. It exploded. 12,000 likes in 4 hours. Comments from every corner of the company. Even former employees who'd once cursed the logistics grind posted praise. Someone found an old email Rebecca had written after a warehouse fire drill went wrong. It had 3 bullet points and ended with, "Safety is not a vibe. It's a promise." That quote got slapped onto a Canva poster and turned into a meme. Irony never hits harder than when truth's on its side. Back in legal's office, Rebecca's attorney, Janine, filed one final document with the board's investigative committee, a comprehensive Slack log from Madison's entire tenure. Not screenshots, raw export. Every message, every emoji, every deleted comment. It was annotated line by line with context, timestamps, and internal code violations cross-referenced in the margins like a prosecutor's dream spreadsheet. And yes, it was notarized. When the board's lead counsel opened it, she reportedly said, "Well, that's the end of plausible deniability." Janine simply replied, "We're not looking for revenge, just resolution." Rebecca still hadn't commented publicly, not even to her team. Her lawyer had advised silence, and she was more than happy to let the system work for once. She spent the day unplugged, walking trails outside the city, answering no calls, ignoring her inbox. That night, opened her laptop briefly to one notification, a message from the board's legal assistant. Subject line, "Final review in progress. Recommendation to follow." No exclamation point, no emotion, just precision. Exactly how Rebecca liked it. The boardroom lights were dimmed, not for drama, but because no one could look each other in the eye anymore. The CEO strolled in 5 minutes late, latte in hand, like this was just another quarterly posturing session. His tie was loose, his hair perfect. "Let's just clear this up," he said with a chuckle as he took his seat, crossing his legs like a man used to winning. "We've all said things we regret. This has been taken out of. Let's play the tape," the board chair said flatly, cutting him off mid-spin. The screen flickered to life. There was no music, no intro, just a raw screen share recording of the Q4 all-hands Zoom. Rebecca's camera in the top right, Madison's cat filter frame grinning below. And then, at the 14-minute mark, the moment. The CEO's voice, unmistakably clear, boomed from the speakers. "Apologize to my wife in front of the entire company, or you're done." The sound in the boardroom didn't drop. It died. Before anyone could fake a cough or reach for plausible deniability, a second window popped open on the projector, Slack logs scrolling in real time next to the video. Madison's messages layered like oil over water, replaceable meat. They're just meat with hands. Ops people have trauma brain, they cling to safety like it's sacred. Each quote time-stamped, each line matched to footage. Then the final overlay, Rebecca's employment contract, highlighted clause, bolded terms, all legal triggers lit up in red. The general counsel turned in his chair. No fanfare. No preamble. Her clause was triggered. You retaliated. Damages clause is active. If we don't settle, we pay indemnification, issue a public apology, and face class exposure. He paused. Resignation or removal. Those are your options. The CEO opened his mouth, shut it again. His hand twitched toward his coffee but froze halfway. He wasn't smug anymore. He was shrinking. The room had no space for bluster left. The chair leaned forward. "This company does not exist to clean up your personal messes." Motion was introduced. A vote held, unanimous. Effective immediately, the CEO was to resign. Madison's position, along with her entire culture ops initiative, was dissolved retroactively. HR was instructed to notify the SEC of the governance failure. The company's lawyer drafted language for a quiet but final statement. No applause, no yelling, just a cold, administrative exorcism. 2 days later, on a quiet Thursday morning, Rebecca sat on her porch with a chipped mug of black coffee and a blanket around her shoulders. A blue jay landed on her fence post as she opened her tablet. The headline loaded slow, then all at once. CEO resigns amid workplace retaliation scandal. Culture lead fired following audit. She didn't smile big, just a soft, fleeting twitch of the mouth. Her phone buzzed. A new email. Subject line, "Consulting offer interested in advising our board." She didn't open it right away. Instead, she watched the wind shake the leaves off the tree her old VP once joked would outlast them all. He wasn't wrong. Because Rebecca didn't rant. She didn't rally. She didn't escalate. She documented and pressed record. Appreciate you sticking around, you wise old rebels. Smash that subscribe button, or this fossil might just cause another epic fiasco.